big welcome. If you don't already know, I am Naomi, and I am a content designer here at Pip Decks, and also an ex-teacher. So doing stuff like this makes me really, really excited. And I am really lucky to have three other Pip Deckers with me today. We have Jem, Vivi, and Dom, if you want to give a wave. They're right beside me. They will be talking about how they get into the deck and introduce themselves when it's their turn. Then we're going to do some learning. So we're going to show you 8 ways to get into Pip Decks. It's like a cheat sheet that you're going to get to take away after this call also with you. And then we're going to go back to some more participations. We're going to go back to the mirror board, and we're going to kind of see how we answered the questions at the start of the call. If not, what are the roadblocks that are holding you back from getting started? So we're going to do a workshop together using one of the cards from Pip Decks, from Workshop Tactics. So the case studies. I'm very excited. This is a little sneak peek. First up, we have Jem from Head of Publishing. She's going to share how she uses the deck when she wants to do something.
Hi everyone. Thank you for joining us. So as Naomi said, I'm Head of Publishing at Pip Decks. So I have been working behind the scenes on all the print products. And by now we've got, I think there's 7 decks in the store, so it's like 350 cards that you could choose from. I absolutely love a system, a process. I like to have my hand held. I'm very much a science brain. So the problem that we quite often come up against in our team is that we've got loads of big ideas and we need to choose one to focus on, but we're not quite sure how to compare the two, which one's going to give the greatest reward, which one's the most risky, which one should we focus our energy on. So for that, I would normally use Workshop Tactics, and I'll take the box, and the second card, after the one with the nice illustration on the front, should be, if you haven't messed the cards up, Workshop Strategy System. And this has got a series of questions on it that point you to different sections of the deck. So the first question, do you know clearly what your team is working towards? And if you don't, it directs you to go to the goals section. And if you do, it takes you on to the next question. Do you know the biggest problem that you face? And then from there, you work your way down. So the next question is, are you able to articulate your problem clearly? Do you have a range of ideas? And then we get to the one that we might want to use, which is, have you assessed if your ideas are robust? And if you answer no, I don't know if, I knew it was going to blur it out. It shows you that you need to go to the evaluate section, which has got a blue eyeball icon. And then the blue colour on the icon is matched to the blue border on the card. So these will probably go everywhere. I actually did practice this. Is that weird? So you take out your blue cards, and at this point the hand holding stops and you kind of have to guide yourself. But I think for me, getting it whittled down to just 5 cards is really helpful. So I might have a look through and decide any one of these could be useful. And sometimes it's best not to try and find the perfect card, because there isn't a perfect card. Just pick one and it will probably help. So in this case, I would choose Idea Beetle. And this helps you evaluate if your idea is strong and has legs, or if it needs more thinking. So on the back, the diagram shows you how to draw a little evaluation chart for each idea that you want to test. So you might draw a beetle for each idea, and then hopefully one of your beetles will be much stronger than the other. And the outcome is that you have found your idea to work with. And that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Jem. What I really like also about the strategy system, and what I heard you say, is that it's like quite specific. So it takes you through the questions. Like every deck has this, it takes you through the questions. But then when you get to that category that it's led you to, that's when, like what you said is like, then you have to kind of then start to kind of use your creative judgment of like how it fits the situation. So it's like quite structured, and then it gives you a place of freedom within that category.
Yeah, it gives me the confidence that one of those 5 cards is probably the right one, which is what I need, instead of being faced with 50 potentials that I could choose from.
Well, thank you for sharing. Just so everyone's know, I know we have a couple people just came in. All of the slides you see today, you will get at the end of the call. We'll give you the PDF, so you can look this over again if something's too quick or you wanted to review it again. You will have this for yourself after. So thank you, Jem. And up we have Dom.
Thanks, Naomi. Hey, everyone. You can hear me okay, right? I just want to check that. Okay, perfect. So my situation was a little bit different to Jem's. I was looking at ways to communicate with the coworker. It was actually Naomi in this case. And I also wanted to create a bit of a structure around what I wanted to learn and do over a series of weeks. So I didn't exactly know how to go about this, but I knew roughly what I had in my head. So what I did to start with, rather than going through the questionnaire card that Jem went through, I decided to look through a bunch of recipes. So the recipes are a collection of tactics, essentially, that are predetermined and pre-bundled together. I read through the recipes to actually understand, okay, like what is in each of these. And the one that I landed on was inside innovation tactics, which was opportunity mining. So opportunity mining has a collection of 5 different cards: real needs, radical repurposing, recruitment probe, and documentary conversation, and CSI pinboard. When I put each of these cards together, it gave me like a loose structure that I could start with. From there, I could look through different cards within that category and swap certain cards out if they didn't make sense in my situation. And what that landed me with was, I think, 5 different cards then that had a structure that I was happy with, that I wanted to take forward. I then used those 5 cards as a framework to communicate with Naomi, to say, hey, here's how I'm thinking the next few weeks should go. Here's all the things that I think we should do, and here's why. And then it also let me link to each of the cards, and I could say to him, hey, like if you're not sure about something, go check out this card, and it will give you a place to start. And also for me, then it also gave me a better understanding of what exactly I needed to do to uncover our users' problems and ultimately get to the end place that I wanted to get to.
Thank you, Dom. I just have a question for you. So you got this from Innovation Tactics. How did you know that you wanted to use that deck? Because you went to that deck and you looked through all the recipes and read front and back, but how did you know even the step before that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess if you're not familiar with the contents, it can be even overwhelming to know which one to open up. It's a can of worms for sure. So I guess the nature of the role that I have, which is designing stuff and ultimately solving problems for everyone here on this call, my goal is to understand our customers' needs, so all of you, what you're struggling with, what your hopes and dreams are, and things like that. So the tagline on the box says, ditch the guesswork, make things people want. Well, I want to make stuff that you will want. That's really my goal. So yeah, that's kind of where I started, just using the tagline to get a signal of where I wanted to dig deeper.
Awesome. Cool. So you found basically like looking at the tagline on the boxes was like a quick in of like, okay, that's the core of that box.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. Up next is me. So as I said before, I'm a content designer. I work on the design team with Dom. And sometimes we kind of have these like general problems. And I had this like general feeling before in the past that I was just not being productive enough with my time. And it's not like I had a specific thing or I was like, oh, it's this thing, but I just like had this feeling that the time that I was using in my life was not being productive, specifically at work. So of course I grabbed the productivity deck. That was like quite an easy link for me. And my favorite way to get into a deck is the tarot technique, I call it. And it's just like very similar to tarot cards, if anyone's had experience with tarot cards before. But it's basically, the idea is I took out the deck and I didn't look at any of the cards. I shuffled them around and I pulled myself 3 random cards, 1, 2, 3 in front of me, completely random. And then I took my time and I read each one and I thought, could I apply this is this potentially something that's going to solve this kind of general concept that I have, which is not feeling productive? And I did this a couple times. I actually got some really great inspiration for other areas of my work that I didn't expect. And this is what I like so much about the Taro technique is you kind of like, one, you kind of learn stuff that maybe you use in the future, but it's also like, oh, actually, I didn't think about that. I could use that for something else. And they ended up coming with the card that I thought, oh, yes, this is exactly what I need, was the Pomodoro, which is basically splitting your work into 25-minute bursts, taking a 5-minute break, work for 25, 5-minute break, and you do this in a cycle of 4, and then you take a really long break at the end. And I find this really works well for me, especially sitting on a computer all day, as I imagine some of you do. It's so easy to get lost and just stuck. And my body, like, it just feels horrible at the end of the day. And this has really helped me be more active, but then also at the same time, my productivity and my ability to focus has improved a lot. So I would highly recommend it. Some of you probably already know it. It's like quite known technique. But yeah, just the Taro, if you're like ever feeling like, oh my, okay, I know this is the deck, but I just like don't even know where to go, just deal yourself 3 random cards. And that is my favorite technique. Last but not least, we have Vivi.
Hi, I'm Vivi, head of delivery, and I've joined Pip Decks about 4 weeks ago, so I'm like a newbie in the team. But apparently, I'm an OG because I've been using Pip Decks since 2020, so I kind of got like workshop tactics when it was still like in its infancy. So I'm really excited to be part of the team. And very differently from Naomi, which I really like your technique. I'm going to use that going forward. I do like to look through everything. So the way I like to kind of get the cards. I use them like a buddy, like if I was stuck, if I got a specific problem, I just kind of go through, quickly shuffle through the cards and look for keywords. That's my deck. And actually that's the same way I use the app. So I use the search functionality keywords to kind of give me like a similar kind of effect to how I use the cards. So the problem I had is that our teams have gone through some recent like org structure changes, which kind of affected some the ways that we operate, and then people started to get a bit confused about like what am I responsible for. Who makes specific decisions. So we could like that kind of was highlighted in the conversations that I had with people since I joined and in some of the retros we had. So what I did, kind of did my shuffling and I found on tactics and I decided to use the roles and responsibilities card. I don't know if you can see it. I did make some tweaks. I do like to adapt sometimes some of the tactics to like a specific problems we have. I think that's like I don't always kind of like follow it to the left. So actually it's quite a good thing to know that adapting it's okay. So I in this particular case I just changed one of the questions, and then there was a table, and then I just kind of like instead of it being for discipline, for like function, job function, I changed that for individuals who were, everyone had like the opportunity to kind of talk through that roles and responsibilities. So how I used it, I run a 2 hours workshop with about 8 people in the team. So we could kind of like, and then the outcome of that, we would get like a better understanding of each other's roles and responsibilities. And then so everyone would know like who does what, who makes specific decisions, and the main output we end up with is like a high level framework that we can now use to make decisions going forward, and also will help us onboard new people when they join the organization. I think that was particularly helpful for the newbies like me and Dom. And I think that's it.
Thanks, Vivi. I just have a quick question to clarify, because it says your approach is headlines, and I noticed you said keywords. Can you clarify, like, because it's like the bolded text on the
The
card?
bold text at the top, yeah, because it kind of gives, because it's so big, it gives me like, you know, really quick insights with what the card is all about, or the recipes. But I tend to just kind of go straight to the cards. Yeah, and then if I have like also like some clarifying questions, I do use the little categories at the top to see like how that might help me see if it's the right thing.
Okay,
But it's just
awesome.
kind of like the title.
Okay, so you're like going through and you're just like scanning all the headlines in the whole deck and just kind of like putting aside stuff that makes sense
Yeah,
to you.
that might be useful. Yeah, and
Okay.
then I'll go through into the detail. But yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. So those are 4 case studies for you. And now I wanted to kind of show you 8 ways, which is going to be a bit of a repeat of what we said, of how like getting into Pip Decks, so using your deck. And probably you've noticed for all 4 of us, it involved us like playing around with the deck. And I know sometimes you get your deck, and this has definitely happened for me when I first started before, and I get my deck and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many cards. I know there's so much stuff in here. Like, and I felt a little bit overwhelmed of where to start. And I think the important part is the simple thing of simply starting. And this is why we wanted to give you like different strategies of just like picking up, even if it's maybe just, it's like, you're not sure about the technique, is just picking up the deck and doing the tarot technique, serving yourself 3 cards. And it's in the act of actually reading and interacting is going to start unlocking things for you. So 8 ways to unlock those things. I've organized it into 2 sections. So we have the inside the deck section, which is the strategy system, recipes, tarot, and headlines, which is what we just talked about. And then we have the online resource section. So we have our online community, we have a blog, we have our events, obviously you're here right now, and a YouTube channel with educational learning. So what I've included, and this is, we've already talked about this before, but basically the strategy system card for every deck is just a great way to help you get to the right section of that deck. And it's a quick kind of cheat sheet, and on the back of it actually has the definition of each category. So this was Jem's technique on how she got into the deck, the one on the left side. And the one on the right side was Dom's technique for using the recipe cards. Right now, the recipe cards, there's like 5 cards in the back, and this is a really great way for you to kind of figure out. Often people don't want to use all 5 cards because that's a lot, but it's a great way for you to figure out, oh, okay, maybe I want to use a couple of these 3, or maybe then I'm going to put my own in. It's kind of a base structure for you to play with. And then you can figure out what works best for your situation. We have the tarot, like I said before, 3 different ways. And then Vivi's technique of reading the bolded headline. The bolded headline gives you like the essence of every card. And that's like kind of, if you're going to quick skim, that's the most important information for you. How's my pace, Jem? Should I go slower, or how are we doing here?
I think you're doing great. I will just interject to answer a question that someone asked. They said, how do Dom and I know, how do we know which deck to start with? And obviously I can cheat because I proofread them all, so I know what's in each one pretty well. But if you wanted to try and shortcut to that level of knowledge, then I think on the previous slide you show the strategy system card. When you flip that over on the reverse side, there's a 2-sentence description of every category. So it's a little bit of time. So that's seven decks, maybe 5 to 10 categories in each. But if you read those category descriptions, that might give you a better idea of which deck is the right one to use for your particular challenge, rather than flicking through every single headline. I just wanted to add that whilst you had the strategy system card on screen. And someone else also asked if we're going to be sending this recording out, which I thought I would address now as well. Are we sending this to people afterwards?
Yes, but send me a specific email after to Naomi@pipdecks.com. But I will say this again at the end. And you can have this recording. Yeah, that's a really great point, Jem. because sometimes just reading like what Dom said is just reading the tagline isn't enough. And when it isn't enough, I think that's is taking your strategy system card. It is a bit of it's a bit of an investment, but then you have a really nice framework of knowledge of feeling, okay, I kind of have a rough idea of what the categories are in each of my decks. So then it's an easier find of which deck to use. Jem, interject anytime, yeah? Dom.
Hey, yeah, I also wanted to add a little bit about add a bit more context to using the tagline on the front of the box. So I understand that it can maybe be overwhelming if you have 7 of them, or maybe more if you've maybe purchased some expansions. So I tend to ask myself questions to get started. So, okay, what kind of problem am I trying to solve here? Am I trying to communicate more clearly? Am I going to pitch something to someone? Am I feeling a bit stuck in my own head? And the answers to questions like that, and then tying that to the tagline on the front of the box, can be really, really helpful. So in the case of me wanting to cater for customers' needs, does any of those messages on the front relate to that? Okay, I'm feeling a bit stuck. Is there any of these decks that can help me get unstuck? You might find yourself in productivity tactics. So just wanted to kind of add a bit more context to that and how I like to think and how it gets me to the right box.
So we just went through when Dom was clarifying with using the actual deck itself, right? You're like touching the deck, interacting with the deck, playing around with it. Now it's looking at our like online resources, our community. So we have Slack. And again, you will be getting this PDF, so you will have all of these links sent to you. We have Slack, which is awesome. We have like 16,000 people in there now. All people really excited to do what they're doing, professionals from all parts of the world doing many, many different things. And this is a really great place to, there's channels in which you can chat with the authors directly. And most of the authors, they're in there directly. And if there's an author not there, someone will Pip Decks, will respond. But it's also a great place to interact with each other and figure out, hey, I'm thinking about this, what about that? And to figure out from other people, from their experiences. And it's a really active community, which is awesome. We also have a blog, and our blog is full of incredible articles that kind of expand on what we're doing in here or what we don't have in the deck. It's specifically looking at like facilitation or different leadership styles and how to approach your coworkers. Social emotional stuff is a bit more focused on the blog side. Jem, do you want to add to that? Because I know that you've been a big writer on this side of things.
Yeah, so it does link through to tactics from different decks. Obviously, the deck content itself isn't always available, but if you own the deck, it might tell you which cards to use. There's not a massive amount more to say on that. I'm just going to address, sorry, I was just typing when you said that. I'm just going to find a link for the Slack channel because one of them is not working. So I'll put that in the chat in a moment.
Perfect. Thanks, Jem. So in 2 other ways, of course, on the left, we're here right now, the events. And what we've been also adding a lot more videos to our YouTube recently. So there's a lot more educational content. Specifically, we have some case studies. We have TED Talk breakdowns where the author of Storyteller Tactics is taking a TED Talk and explaining with cards from Storyteller Tactics how, for example, Brené Brown or Sir King Robinson actually did their TED Talk. And then we have case studies from our founder of Pip Decks talking about his deck, the workshop tactics, and in situations which he's used those like specific cards. So those are other 2 great spots to check us out. And again, these links you will be getting in the PDF at the end too. Jem, do you have any questions or anything in the chat before we move to the next section? Or is also Vivi and Dom, anything you wanted to add to what I've said so far?
No, there's no questions in the chat that haven't been addressed. They are mostly about where the recipe cards are, which we've said are at the start of every deck. And then I've added a link to the Pip Decks community into the chat as well.
So we have about 25 minutes left in our call in our event today, and we are now going to be doing some discussing. It's called democratic discussion. And basically, this is an opportunity for you again. If maybe I imagine some of you had some problems and questions at the start of the call that maybe we've answered. Hopefully, we've read some of your minds. But I also imagine a lot of you still have questions or you have something that's not quite answered. So we're going to be going into the mirror board that you got at the start. Maybe, Jem, you could put that into the chat again. And we're going to be going into the part 2. I'll also bring it up on the board just so we know that we're all in the right place. And I'm going to explain to you what a democratic discussion is. But let me get the mirror board up. And then we can all be in there together. So I'm going to just stop my screen share for a moment. And this gives you all a chance to get into the mirror board.
We've had a question as to whether or not we do individual training at all, which we don't, but we're always looking at new ways of trying to bring that sort of personalised training feel to our content. So yeah, definitely keep your eyes peeled. I don't think we've got anything specifically in that vein, but it's a theme that we're keen to explore. And Naomi, I have theme sorted the
I noticed
responses from earlier, and you will be delighted to know that there were pretty much 2 responses to what makes it difficult for you to get started, and they are overwhelm and knowing where to start, which actually feel like 2 sides of the same coin as well.
Awesome. So theme sort is another tactic for workshop tactics. And it's in which you, like, when you have a lot of information in one spot, it's grouping the information that are kind of similar themes, theme sort. So it's easier to understand. So Jem did the tactic for us, and she's theme sorted it, but then also give each section a title. So we have working with others, overwhelm, helping with specific use cases, where to start, question mark, exclamation mark, and then finding the right starting point. So we're just going to put those parking lot, just put that to the side for a second. And I want everyone to come over to part 2 over here, where the democratic discussion, which is from workshop tactics in the discuss section. And this is, maybe you're going to be asking the exact same question you asked at the start of the call, and that's okay. But basically, we're curious is like, what is, like, if we haven't answered your question already, haven't read your mind, what is holding you back? What questions do you have for us? So what you're going to be doing is you're going to put it into the questions in the to discuss section. I love that someone's already starting. Awesome. And then I will be choosing, or Jem will be choosing and bringing in one sticky to discuss. And if your sticky is there to discuss, you can unmute yourself and elaborate if you feel like you need to explain it any further. And then we will do our very best to answer your question. If for some reason we can't answer it, we will find a solution. And of course, we're not going to get to everyone's questions today. And if we're not getting to your question, I'm going to give you a solution for that at the end of the call. So the first one we have here, and then Vivi, Jem, and Dom, please jump in also. The question is, if you would recommend one deck to start with, which one would it be? The first thing I thought of, and then anyone can, Vivi, Dom, and Jem can jump in after, is we have a quiz that helps you figure out what deck is best for you. Jem, do you think you could put the link into the chat from the website?
I can find it, yes.
It's in like the deck section.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I know what you mean.
This is a great thing because it's like 5 questions, and it's like, for me, it was like a quick, easy cheat sheet, how to figure out which deck was for me. I guess the question for this person it would be is just, I guess, maybe what you're looking for, what Dom also said before, like, could you ask is there a more specific question you could ask? And whoever wrote this, feel free to unmic yourself if you want to elaborate.
Hi, I'm Melissa from
Hi.
Massachusetts, United States.
Hi, Melissa.
So I was really excited to see this, and I ended up, purchasing all 7 of them, as a group. But obviously, timing wise, very busy, so I don't have time to dive into all of them, but could use all of them. So I guess I was just looking to see if there was one that maybe was a little bit more intuitive or a little bit easier to kind of jump in first, to kind of get my feet wet before I started looking at all of them.
I mean, when I love the productivity one, because the productivity one is like quite individual based. So it's just for you. It's not as complex. You don't have to think about a whole team and other stakeholders. And that's kind of a nice one to start with yourself, from what I hear you saying. You just want to kind of start here, kind of figure out and play around.
Okay.
So my recommendation would be the productivity deck. Dom, Vivi, or Jem, would you like to say something different or any other input?
I was going to say, it depends on what you're trying to do. I'll say my go-to tends to be workshop tactics, because I tend to run lots of workshops that facilitate a lot of sessions. It was also like my first deck. That would for me, and it's very kind of like intuitive to use, like really quick. So that would be my go-to if you want to think like that. But I imagine like everyone would have like different ideas. Like I know Dom uses innovation tactics a lot. So I don't know if you've got anything else to add.
I would add a second vote for workshop tactics. It's my absolute favourite, and until recently, I didn't really run many workshops at all. I used them individually, and I think because they walk you through sort of such universal problems. So trying to work out what your biggest challenge is, trying to work out how to articulate that, coming up with ideas, and then choosing one. Like those problems can be applied so easily to so many different things that I just found workshop tactics really, really helpful. It's not my favourite deck, but it's the one I would always recommend. I'd say my favourite is brand tactics. So if you need to use one and you want it to be really fun, like brand tactics I just find it super. All of the tactics in it are really fun. So I think that would be my second suggestion.
Dom, did you want to add anything? Or you feel like we've covered all the bases?
I think we've covered all the bases. I think I just want to clarify that I think innovation tactics can feel a bit abstract. So like if you're kind of just starting out and really want to anchor yourself to things that are going on, I think just to kind of like recap and summarize, workshop tactics is great for like team-based things, also giving you as an individual ideas on activities you can run for yourself to get things unblocked or get things started. And then productivity tactics if you're just feeling a bit stuck in general, a bit stuck in a rut and want to get out of that. Just kind of reiterating what everyone said. I agree.
Did we answer your question, Melissa? Yeah, wonderful.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So our next question we have is overwhelm. I have the full deck and there are too many resources on the Pip Decks website, and I don't know where to start. Does the person that wrote the sticky note want to elaborate, or just want to share your name and who you are?
Hi, I think that was my question. I'm Condi.
Hi, Condi.
Hi. Nothing to elaborate really, unless you have specific questions, but it's just that I have the full deck here and it's still in cellophane wrap because I just don't know where to start, and I don't know if I need to like start a Slack account. I'm not a Slack user. There's lots of blog articles, there's lots of resources, which is great, but on the other hand, it just adds to the overwhelm.
Totally understandable. I totally can understand the feeling of overwhelm. Which deck you said you have one deck, or you have all the decks?
I have all the decks.
You have all the decks, okay. And did you get them all at the same time?
Yep.
Okay, and you haven't opened any of them?
Nope.
Ooh, that's exciting. Ooh. Well, I mean, it's a similar question to Melissa before, but kind of in a way framed a different way. For myself personally, I would recommend choosing just one, and that would be your deck of the week. So one that just like kind of excites you a little bit, or maybe you just close your eyes and grab one. And for that week is you look at one card a day. That's it. Keep it really, really simple, right? In the morning, you're having your morning coffee or you're like brushing your teeth. Because in a little bit, like you have this, it sounds like you're interested, you obviously want to dive into the decks, is like maybe try to tie it with a habit. So brushing your teeth or having your morning coffee, or you have an evening routine, is like your deck of the week, and you just do one card tied with your habit. That's it, nothing else. And like forget that there's so many other cards, as you just focus on your one card, one deck. That would be my recommendation. Vivi, Dom, or Jem, do you have a different way that you would approach this question?
First of
I don't
all,
necessarily have an approach.
open them all.
Oh, sorry, Vivi.
Because I also got like the full pack, and I was like, oh my gosh, where do I start? I just start by opening them and then just flicking through. I think that's like my first tip. Just don't be afraid, just open it.
Yeah, I think that's a general theme, and I touched on this earlier in the call, is I think the overwhelm is like all that, like the pre-thinking of like what it could be. But the whole theme, golden thread throughout this, is like touch the deck, get it out, play with it, like get it in your hands. That is going to help your overwhelm. And even if you're just like, don't even know, get it out, choose one random card. Like already just reading that card is going to like spark something, and it's going to spark something else. And then that's going to help so much. And the more that you touch it and interact with it, the less overwhelming it's going to feel. Dom and Jem, did you want to add to this question? It's a really good question.
Yeah, I was just going to say, don't get hung up on trying to find a perfect card, because there probably isn't a perfect card. You'll need to tweak whatever it is a little bit for your situation. And actually, if you're trying to find the right card, then that is going to stop you from opening any of the decks, because you don't know which deck the perfect card's in. But it doesn't exist. So just find like the next best thing. And it might even be the completely wrong card for your situation that gives you the best ideas. I've had tactics go completely wrong before. And that's been just as helpful. So just pick one and do it.
Oh yeah, no matter what, you're going to learn from it. Like guaranteed, you're going to take something away from it. And maybe it's not what you expect. And this is what I love, the author of Innovation Tactics always says this, is just like, have it in your hand. Like tacit learning is like, we could talk about it as much as we want, but it's not until you actually do it, or you're going to like have that next level of understanding. Dom, did you want to add to what was said? No, amazing. Thank you so much. That was a really great question. We are on to our next one, our next top voted question, which is ideas on how to educate team on using Pip Decks. Whoever wrote this, do you want to just say who you are and maybe expand a little bit?
Hi, so I'm Rachel from London in the UK. And yeah, I just basically purchased Pip Decks for myself, but actually I think there's a lot of benefit on kind of using this with the team. And I just wondered if you guys had any ideas on how to maybe get the team thinking and using it, so that it's not just something that helps me, but actually my team can kind of start using as well.
Really great question. Jem?
Gosh, I've literally just written something about how to get people using them at organisations rather than individuals, with some help from Anna, who's in this meeting as well. So I think one of the pieces of advice we gave was to leave the boxes where people can see them, and like take the lid off and take some of the cards out, because especially if the box doesn't belong to someone, the idea of touching someone else's precious cards, like people do not like taking their cards out of the boxes as it is, but taking someone else's cards out is really difficult. So take them out, pass them around, give people permission, because it's, especially in England, we're all so polite about not doing the wrong thing or causing offence. So just like hand them out to people. Maybe get people to do like one 1 week one person has the deck and they choose a card and then update everyone at the end of the week, something like that. So they have to actually do it, but and also just lead by example. Like if you're doing a workshop, I know some people say they like them to be like a secret weapon and they don't tell people that they're using Pip Decks, but you seem to want people to know. So like show them the card that you've used so that they're aware of how they're being used by other people, and then they're more likely to ask to borrow them as well. It was really good timing because I just happened to have written about this exact issue.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. I think that idea of actually, even if they're not using it, me using it and signposting that this has come or this idea has come from Pip Decks is a really great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, I second that completely. I think, and I also, like, being a teacher in the past, I would always have parents come to me be like, how do I get my kid to read? How do I get them to read? And every time I would say, you need to read. And I think it's like through example and through witnessing another person doing it makes it less scary, but also you will like want to kind of like join. That's like, oh, I want to join the cool reading group here. And which is also what Jenna's saying. So like, just, start a cool Pip Decks movement through doing it. Vivi, Dom, did you want to add to that, or you feel awesome? Thank you. Really great question. Next question. I'm also aware of the time. We only do have 5 minutes left, so we're definitely not going to get to all these questions. But as I told you, I will have a solution. If you really want your question answered, we can still make that happen, and I can tell you closer to the end. So potentially our last question for the day. If you bought all 7 decks, how do you strategize and book time to review them all? My workdays are full. Oh my goodness, I can relate to this. No time. It's the precious thing that none of us have, not having time. Does anyone want to jump on this from Dom, Vivi, and Jem? Something that just pops to mind right away? I do have something also, but.
Yeah, I think what immediately jumped to mind is the workdays being full is always a a very common problem. I'm always finding myself like, oh, there's like 20 other things I should have done and never got around to. But what immediately jumps to mind is those moments where maybe you have team meetups or lunch and learns or brown bags or any kind of loose open-ended sessions like that could be a really great opportunity to open a Pip deck, maybe pick a card each from a category and just kind of like dive in and have a more organic open discussion. And even if you don't find something that like nails the specific problem, maybe you could spend the extra time just kind of going through it together and finding stuff. Like, oh, someone could call out, hey, I actually this feels similar to an issue I'm having right now, and have an open conversation around that. So that was an initial idea that came to mind.
Maybe you're Jem.
No, nothing for me. I do actually like Dom's idea.
And I think I liked your comment earlier about trying to fit it into your routine. So if you're having a coffee, read a card while you're having your coffee. Like there's trying to fit it into something alongside something you're already doing is always going to be easier than making a whole new gap for it.
Totally. And it kind of aligns with what I said before about tying it to a habit, basically, in a way. And I would actually recommend, because it says like you feel like you have no time, I would come to the productivity deck to start with, because this deck is it's not about like, I'm going to be the most efficient worker for the system. It's all about using your time effectively. And I thought of right away, one of our recipes called the Mortal Coil. And the concept is we only have 4,000 weeks on Earth, and if you live to 80, and this recipe helps you decide how to use them meaningfully. So it helps you prioritize and figure out what's important to you, and then also like set up your calendar. And part of that would be maybe like booking a block time in your schedule every week, in which is like your Pip Decks exploration, learning, using the deck time, and that can't be touched by anyone else. So I would recommend starting with the productivity deck, and then specifically, potentially, this recipe. Did we answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Awesome. Wonderful. There's so many other really important and really great questions here. So in our Pip Decks community, there's a channel called, it's bolded here, Getting Started. And this is where you can throw your question in after the call. So if you're like, I need this question answered, that's super important to me, I really wish we would have gotten to it, go into our Slack and shoot us a question there. And then we can answer your question within a couple work days. Thank you for everyone that came. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day, evening, wherever you are in the world, and look forward to talking to you on Slack. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.